Hi, everyone. You can hear me, I guess. Thank you so much for all the presentations and actually for the whole conference. It's really quite wonderful. I kind of wish it would never end. Thank you especially for the invitation. Thanks to the director of the HRI and also to Axel and to Lucia and actually all of the people who helped me get my way from the UK to here. And thanks for the sea journey last night. That was very special. Okay, so you can see the book. There's a preface to this book, yeah. I'm just going to put it up there briefly because it's too long to read, and in the interest of time, if you're on the way home, you may find the idea of what the flavor of the book is. But what I really want to talk about is storytelling, or begin with storytelling as sense-making. Like all kids, I was captivated by stories. I have a really vivid memory when I was 7 years old on the floor of the library reading a story about The Happy Prince by Oscar Wilde, which was a fable about a prince who was a statue with a heart of lead, but who was once alive and had a human heart. So for me as a child, that was a first fascination with the natural and the artificial. The body is new and strange, that the poet Ovid wrote about 2,000 years ago, and that are key elements in our technological enchantment. I met my very first robot when I was a linguistics undergraduate in Sweden. That was a long time ago. I was recruited onto a research project at IBM with computing and psychology, and I had absolutely no idea what we were doing. But I do remember that the machine moving slowly towards you, a really primitive robot, obviously by today's standards, was this first sense of machines taking care of business, delegating business to us, and the idea of futures rushing towards us. A sort of, for me, a story not yet told. So storytelling is how, as humans, we make sense of the world, really from the earliest age. So, of course, writers are going to be fascinated by the challenges and the opportunity of intelligent machines. What we're doing as a writer is building fictional worlds to imagine what's possible, what's likely, so to solve problems of the imagination. I think of writing as a way of thinking aloud. So what you're really doing as a writer is observing the world, observing human behaviors. You're listening, eavesdropping, looking for clues to think about what's next. Really, if you think about it in the context of what we're talking about here, to create a fictional character is to create a human and to investigate the human condition. And also to wonder about the law of unintended consequences. So in my talk today, I want to explore our technology as an agent of seduction. Yay, it works. So the very first question that dogged me over the years was, what is to be the future of feeling? And it was a question that was posed by an Irish molecular biologist in 1924. So my response became the book, which is a philosophical thriller about the future of human love. It tells the story of a chance encounter between two women, Scarlett, an AI developer, and a mother, and Girl, a young woman who reveals dark secrets about her machine relationships. So my writing has a particular interest always in women at work in male-dominated spaces. I spent 14 years in investment banking, and I wanted to place women at the center of a story about technology. So why would you do that? Because fiction shifts perspective, and stories require you to look through the eyes of another. When you change the character, you change the story. So The Lovemakers would become a book about women in technology, exploring themes that include design, ethical behavior challenges, female friendship, class, motherhood, representation, and also a book that wonders how AI and robotics are transforming or redefining what we understand as the future of love, sex, and desire. During the years of research, I did realize that the novel was not going to be enough. So the book would need an arts-science dialogue. That's storytelling combined with science communication. So I needed to recruit scientists and engineers to specialists who work in the field of AI to get involved. And if you think about it, when you watch a movie about AI or robots like Her or Ex Machina, you might wonder what's technically accurate, what's real, or what's desirable, and what are the engineering challenges. So I found and put together a number of academics and a really enthusiastic contributor group to bring a cross-disciplinary perspective to our human-machine relationship, one that engages arts, humanities, and social sciences and STEM. I also spent time with some private stakeholders, places like DeepMind and the London Mathematics Laboratory, to work on plotting and problem solving on accuracy. One of the examples in the book is inventing a fictional micro-air vehicle, which became the IP story in the novel. The aim overall was cross-disciplinary collaboration. We wanted to entertain, to demystify, to inform, and to provoke debate. And in the end, to engage a really broad audience on the social impact of AI and robotics, and assert the power of storytelling as a public engagement strategy. So the wonderful thing about humans is that we're always falling in love with people and with big ideas. And probably the most challenging love affair is our relationship with emergent technology. But with love comes risk and the potential for great happiness and despair, as has been suggested within the context of this conference. The future has always been shaped by what we decide to do with the clever things that we invent. So the challenge is how we manage innovation and what we decide to do with it. Richard Feynman, the physicist, wrote that scientific knowledge is an enabling power to do either good or bad, but it does not carry instructions on how to use it. He was referring to personal experience when he was watching the mushroom cloud in 1945. But how we assess risk depends on our point of view, and that's shaped by our knowledge and our experience and our engagement in narratives around AI and robotics. But first, let's take a quick look at history. It didn't all start at Dartmouth. I'm always surprised when I talk to my STEM students and also to focus groups in research how people don't realize that this actually was not the beginning, the 1950s, the Dartmouth Conference about AI. Because the truth is that humans have been dreaming about artificial life for thousands of years, and our desire to create life in our own image is revealed in the history of human thought, art, and imagination. In the Lovemaker's book, you'll find a fabulous essay from the historian E.R. Truitt that reveals how already 3,000 years ago across Europe to Asia to the Middle East, we find texts and engineering evidence of our fascination with the natural and the artificial. So thousands of years before Karl Kapek invented the word robota, we already find automata like these in the form of artificial slaves and servants, killing machines, surveillance devices, and also artifacts that are designed for erotic purposes. So, for example, the mouth of truth you see in the first image there was designed to determine a woman's sexual history and would bite off her fingers if she was not a virgin. There are Sanskrit texts from the 11th century that tell the story of an artificial female servant who fools a male traveler into believing that it's human. The traveler has sex with the automaton and then destroys it. So the really important point about history is that themes that arise in our contemporary discussions about AI and robotics are not new. But in my research in the book, it's clear that among students and the general population, to think of AI as a 20th century invention. This lack of historical awareness is a really worrying omission, especially in the education of students in technology and in the general discourse. These ancient artifacts highlight the enduring nature of our innovative capabilities and our curiosity, our capacity for problem solving. And the boundary of the natural and the artificial allows us to explore the human condition. It seems that we haven't changed very much. Our hopes and our dreams and fears about intelligent machines are the same as they were thousands of years ago. So power, in our case, and the tech in the hands of private enterprise, design, surveillance, privacy, representation, intimacy, all of these were foretold by the ancients. So we know that the evidence of our technological seduction is everywhere. Smart devices are embedded in our lives, shaping our behaviors. We know that we bond easily with things that we find useful and empowering. I think that seduction and attachment are key to our thinking about AI and robotics. And these are the forces that prime us for human-machine relationships. So I guess we would agree that our future is a merging of human and machine. So what are AI and robotics redefining as we understand as love, attachment, and desire? And what might be the impact on our relationships as parents, friends, lovers? Who and what will we love? But really, most importantly, what do our behaviors reveal about ourselves? So I'd always thought about seduction in terms of romance and sex until I discovered the original Latin, which is to persuade away from someone to abandon their duty. So we can think of our technological seduction as a force that leads us away from and nudges us towards something or someone else. We're led away because we're fascinated by someone or something that attracts us. Could be a device, an idea, a person, a dating app, could be our work. So if we're drawn away from something, who are we ignoring? What happens if our attention is diverted away from a person, or a child, or a lover? What's the cost and the consequence of that transfer of attention? And who might be excluded? Who might be missing out? So picture the scene. I'm walking in the park. There's a woman, a mother possibly, standing facing the phone, and the baby is in the pram. The baby is doing what baby's doing, frantically trying to get the mother's attention. But the mother is talking on FaceTime to her friend. These kind of seduction behaviors are actually really important because eye gaze for babies is key for their cognitive and emotional development and also to bonding and attachment. Babies need to stare at faces. They're learning. The baby in the stroller is competing with the smartphone for the parent's attention. And as it grows up, that child will quickly realize that the device is the prize. Will the machine become more interesting than the parent? Need to go back. Right. So what I'm wondering is, are we actually losing interest in talking to our kids? Are parents unable to manage their distribution of attention between screen and child? If you look at the research report from Pew, you'll see that that seems to be the suggestion. What are the consequences for language development and social interaction? Another seduction behavior, falling in love with the algorithm. We appear to be outsourcing our love interests. We look increasingly to technology to solve and provide solutions for our intimacy needs. It could be a lover, a hookup, a chatbot. But the boom in online dating suggests that we increasingly rely on tech-driven solutions. So this is really a deep question about trust behaviors. Does that mean that we're moving further away from the in-person experience? Does it mean that we're trusting the algorithm because we believe it gives us more control about the outcome? Do we prefer to delegate our love futures to the makers, the commercial enterprises who gather and curate the data? And there's some interesting ambivalence in the numbers there. So half of online daters say that their experience online has been positive, and the other half on dating apps say that they have come across someone that they think was trying to scam them. That's really quite interesting. So seduction and design, I've always found Weiser's quote really captivating and chilling. The most profound technologies are those that disappear. They weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they are indistinguishable from it. In many ways, I think this captures the challenges of emergent tech. It's the concept of the quiet, invisible servant. But the problem with invisibility is the black box, what lies beneath. AI is always built by someone, so who are the makers? Who's in the room? And what are their values? Again, these are questions about trust, deception, illusion, transparency, accountability. As the poet Yeats wrote, in dreams begin responsibility. The designing in our own image raises very tough questions about who is our. The representation numbers, as the other speakers were saying, are shameful when it comes to women and minorities. These are narratives of erasure, omission, and exclusion that reveal prejudice, bias, and inequalities. And of course, the narrative space in the public domain remains dominated by stakeholders in the tech industry. When I think about AI in the context of our tech seduction, I sense a parallel with the years leading up to the 2008 financial crisis. And my earlier point about what we humans do with the clever things that we invent. I was a banker in the 90s when the quants arrived, the physicists and the mathematicians. And this was a time of extraordinary creativity and innovation, when a combination of maths and technology transformed the industry and the appetite for risk. And when, as many of you will remember, fortunes were made out of products that many people, including the people who worked in the financial sector, did not understand. So I remember a particular conversation with a programmer analyst working on a model for a hybrid derivative. We had an argument about theoretical value. He could not conceive of a scenario where an A-rated instrument could halve in value. And there was no reason that he should have had to think about that. He hadn't lived through a stock market crash. He didn't think about human factors being accommodated in a model. So the answer was simple. It was human behavior. He'd never witnessed what so-called smart people do when they panic. Many financiers did not consider the unintended consequences in what was, after all, an ethical wilderness, nor did the regulators or government or the people who were managing your money. 2008 was, in my view, a toxic convergence of plot lines: incompetence, greed, complacency, and to be specific, financial engineering, catastrophic management failure, negligent government, lax regulation, and a zombie electorate out shopping. So we might pause right at this moment in time to consider the current noise about an AI race, and to consider, again, what we do with the clever things that we invent. We humans are unpredictable. That's both incredibly exciting and incredibly dangerous. So let's take a brief look at attachment, which in my view paves the way to intimacy. The theory of attachment plays a key role in developmental psychology and how we develop trust. If we look on the left at Harry Harlow's psychology primate lab in the 1950s, where he was experimenting on newborn rhesus monkeys to investigate how they bond with their caregivers. The previous assumption was that the infant baby would bond with the mother because the mother provides the food. So Harlow separated the newborn monkeys and isolated them in individual cages. The wire mother had a feeding bottle, the cloth mother had no bottle. The infant monkeys overwhelmingly preferred to cling to the cloth mother instead of the wire mother. And when the baby monkey was frightened, they almost always went straight to the cloth mother and clung to it, even though the wire mother was the only source of food. You can watch it on YouTube, but it's pretty distressing. One of the most compelling examples of human-machine attachment that I've ever come across is from Julie Carpenter's research in The Lovemakers, research into the US military personnel and their relationship with the robots that they use in bomb disposal. These are small, tank-like robots with absolutely no human attributes whatsoever. So Julie received a letter from a former OAD technician, and I'd like to read you this because I think you'll really enjoy the concept of attachment. So here's his letter. I'm an OED technician of 8 years and 3 deployments. I can completely agree with the other techs that you interviewed in saying that the robots are tools, and as such, I will send them into any situation regardless of possible danger. During a mission in Iraq in 2006, I lost a robot that I had named Stacy 4 after my wife, who's an EOD tech as well. She was an excellent robot that never gave me any issues, always performing flawlessly. Stacy 4 was completely destroyed, and I was only able to recover very small pieces of the chassis. Immediately following the blast that destroyed Stacy 4, I can still remember the feeling of anger, and lots of it. My beautiful robot was killed, was actually the statement I made to my team leader. After the mission was complete and I had recovered as much of the robot as I could, I cried at the loss of her. I felt as if I had lost a dear family member. I called my wife that night and I told her about it too. I know it sounds dumb, but I still hate thinking about it. I know that the robots we use are just machines, and I would make the same decisions again, even knowing the outcome. I value human life. I value the relationships I have with real people, but I can tell you that I sure do miss Stacy 4. She was a good robot. What we talk about when we talk about love. In my novel, The Lovemakers, any person who can afford it gets an iMom, a humanoid robot with AI capabilities, customized to look like the mother. But Scarlett, the AI developer, does not want her 3-year-old son to bond with robots. She wants him to have human childcare. Her husband is vehemently opposed. He doesn't trust human nannies. The little boy has got separation anxiety. He cries when his mother is away. Scarlett chooses to work away in the underground tech lab, and her husband is angry. So they argue. Her husband says, "Our little boy should have an iMom, an avatar of his real mother who can stand in while you are away, who talks like you, who tells stories like you, has access to your memory bank." Girl, the young female character in the book, cannot believe that Scarlett doesn't have a state-of-art iMom since she has so much money. Girl's whole life has been a catalogue of abuse and neglect. She definitely doesn't trust human childcare. And she taunts Scarlett, "You're just afraid that your little boy will end up loving the iMom, that he will prefer the bot." And yeah, this is a possibility. Some of his friends already do. The argument between Scarlett and her husband doesn't get resolved, and then things get very dark. But you have to read the cliffhanger. In their very wonderful essay, the contributors Bryson and Begani to The Lovemakers suggest that some children may develop a preference for machine relationships. Human parents and carers are unpredictable, emotional, forgetful, irritable, and unreliable. Robots might lead to an increase in children developing bonding issues with humans, but on the other hand, interaction with AI and robots might deepen their understanding of themselves. So who and what will we love? Our behaviors are the signposts that point towards the future of our human-machine relationships. Our fascination with and dependence on tech fuels our ever-increasing intimacy with machines. So Devlin and Carpenter in The Lovemakers examine how social robots reflect very real and important social issues like loneliness, our desire for companionship, love and affection, and care and sex. I think Sherry Turkle's comment on the top of that slide, this idea of performance, the pretend self of a robot calling forth the pretend self of a person performing for it, that's not promising for adults to try and live authentically and navigate our real human problems. If you type in female sex robots, you'll see the internet is littered with pictures of hypersexualized bots. And it's really pretty depressing, which is why I don't use it in any presentation slides. Kate Devlin, who in the book is a leading authority on sex robots, point out that there are no sex robots at the moment. There are lifelike dolls with significant engineering challenges. And there is a vibrant and rapidly growing commercial market. The question about the robots, the sex robots, returns us again to the questions about what we humans decide to do with the tools that we invent and how we engage with the commercial entities who manufacture them. In my novel, the young woman Girl is forced into a threesome when her partner brings home a sex robot from the pornopod. But Girl finds solace and peace in the machine relationship that provides the companionship and kindness that she has never received from people. Years of abuse have taught her that human love is flawed and unreliable. Machine love is predictable and unconditional. Unlike Scarlett, the AI developer, Girl does not have money or security or opportunity. So inequalities feed into issues of access, representation, exclusion, and the design of intelligent machines. So love in all its manifestations, expressions, and distortions, but it's our attachments that really reveal our true desires, our capacity and our willingness to form unexpected and satisfying relationships with machines. And that suggests that our love futures are likely to cluster around curation of our relationships, customization of the products that private enterprises chooses to develop and manufacture, compartmentalization of our sex lives, but maybe most of all, control. We already fiercely patrol and police our online interactions. So will the consequence be a depletion of human-to-human intimacy, especially face-to-face? Or will face-to-face interactions be perceived as more risky? In the novel, Girl says to Scarlett, "Your kind of love is dying out." The story of our intimate machine relationships is rapidly gathering momentum. Intimacy is the prize, and it's a commercially fueled dream. In all of the research that I did over the years in the book and all of the people that I spoke to, the promising thing that keeps coming back is exactly this. We need more interdisciplinarians in AI. We need loud conversation in cafes and bars. What's needed is public engagement, collaboration, and cooperation around these issues. In this moment, it's quite difficult to imagine that, given the noise around the AI race. But as the futurist who wrote in The Lovemakers insists, made the comment that we should become, or think of ourselves, become agents of change and activists who engage in loud debate about how we want to live. Because when it comes to technology, one thing is for certain, we won't get rewarded for our incuriosity. Thank you very much.